Imagine a story where betrayal meets justice, where desperation drives a woman to outwit the harsh rules of society, and where courage rewrites her destiny. This is the story of Tamar, a tale of grit, strategy, and divine providence. It's a story that shows how God can turn scandal into redemption, and how one woman's boldness secured her a place in the lineage of kings and ultimately the Messiah. Tamar's story begins in an unexpected place, Genesis 38. It has a surprising detour from the main narrative about Joseph, but it carries a powerful message. Judah, one of Jacob's 12 sons, had left his family and settled among the Canaanites. He married a local woman, and together they had 3 sons, Onan, and Shelah. Judah arranged for his firstborn heir to marry Tamar, who was likely from a noble Canaanite family. She was a young woman of resilience and determination, qualities that would define her legacy. But tragedy struck early. The Bible tells us that was wicked in the eyes of the Lord, and because of his wickedness, God put him to death. The text doesn't give details about his sins, but many scholars suggest that his wickedness might have included cruelty toward Tamar or immoral behavior. Suddenly, Tamar was a widow, childless and vulnerable in a society where a woman's security was tied to her husband and children. In those ancient times, a widow without children faced poverty, disgrace, and a precarious future. However, there was a law known as levirate marriage designed to protect widows. If a man died childless, his brother was supposed to marry the widow and produce an heir to carry on the deceased's name. Judah instructed his second son, Onan, to marry Tamar and fulfill this duty. But Onan was selfish. He knew that any child Tamar bore would be considered heir, reducing his own share of the family inheritance. Rather than honor his obligation, Onan repeatedly sabotaged their union by spilling his seed on the ground, preventing Tamar from conceiving. God was angered by Onan's actions, and he too died. Now twice widowed, Tamar's situation was even more precarious. Judah promised she could marry his youngest son Shelah once he was old enough. But Judah's promise was empty. He blamed Tamar for the deaths of his sons and sent her back to her father's house, saying she should wait there until Shelah grew up. What Judah failed to see was the injustice he was committing. By withholding Shelah, he condemned Tamar to a life of shame and despair, denying her the rights and protections. She was due as a widow and as part of his family. Tamar was not a woman resigned to her fate. She understood the stakes. Her honor, her legacy, and her rightful place in Judah's family were at risk. So, she devised a bold and daring plan to claim the justice denied to her. She watched as Shelah grew into a man, yet no marriage arrangement was made. Tamar realized Judah had no intention of fulfilling his promise. Around this time, Tamar learned that Judah, now a widower himself, was traveling to Timnah for the sheep shearing, a significant event often marked by celebration and festivity. This presented an opportunity, and Tamar seized it. She removed her widow's garments and disguised herself. Veiling her face, she positioned herself along Judah's route to Timnah, sitting by the roadside. In the culture of the time, a veiled woman sitting by the roadside would be mistaken for a prostitute. But Tamar was willing to risk public scorn to achieve her mission. Judah came upon Tamar and, failing to recognize her, approached her with a proposition. Tamar agreed but cleverly demanded a pledge to zeal cord and staff's collateral for payment. These personal items held immense significance. They were unmistakable symbols of Judah's identity and authority. By obtaining these, Tamar ensured she had undeniable proof of their encounter. The implications of Tamar's actions were staggering. Her decision to engage Judah in this way was indeed driven by lust or personal gain, but by a desperate need for justice and restoration. Tamar understood she couldn't rely on Judah's sense of duty or honor. Her plan was a calculated risk that depended on Judah's obliviousness and her own resourcefulness. After their encounter, Tamar returned home, removed her disguise, and resumed wearing her widow's garments. Months later, it became clear she was pregnant. When the news reached Judah, unaware of his role, he was furious and demanded she be brought out and burned for her supposed unfaithfulness. But Tamar was prepared. She was brought forth to face judgment. She sent Judah the seal, cord, and staff with a message. "I am pregnant by the man who owns these." The revelation stunned Judah. Confronted with irrefutable evidence, he declared, she is more righteous than I, since I did not give her to my son Shelah." Judah's words cannot be overstated. By acknowledging Tamar's righteousness and his own failure, he restored her standing within the family. Tamar's vindication was complete. Not only had she secured her rights within Judah's household, but she also compelled Judah to recognize her integrity and strength. The very man who sought to condemn her became her defender. Tamar's actions, though unconventional, exposed the moral failings of Judah and the societal structures that had left her vulnerable. Her story highlights the power of truth and justice even in the face of overwhelming odds. Tamar's courage and determination preserved not just her life, but the continuation of Judah's lineage, a lineage that would play a central role in Israel's history and in God's covenant promises. In the months that followed, Tamar gave birth to twins, Perez and Zerah. Their birth carried profound implications. During delivery, Zerah's hand emerged first. The midwife tied a scarlet thread around his wrist to mark him as the firstborn, who would inherit family privileges. But then Perez broke out first, reversing the natural birth order. This reversal was more than a birth complication. It was a divine statement. It underscored God's sovereignty and his power to overturn human expectations. Throughout the Bible, God often chooses the unlikely, the overlooked, and the unexpected to fulfill his purposes. Just as Jacob was chosen over Esau and David over his older brothers, Perez was elevated above Zerah. Perez's descendants include some of the most important figures in biblical history. He is the ancestor of King David, and ultimately through this line comes Jesus Christ. Tamar, a woman whose story began with tragedy and injustice, became an essential link in the chain of God's redemptive plan. Tamar's resilience and faith shine brightly through her story. Despite the injustices she faced, she trusted in God's provision and took bold steps to secure her future and her family's legacy. Her actions were guided by a deep understanding of justice and covenant promises. Inclusion in the messianic lineage is also striking. Tamar is one of only 5 women mentioned in Jesus' genealogy in the Gospel of Matthew, alongside Rahab, Ruth, Bathsheba, and Mary. In a culture that usually highlighted male ancestors, Tamar's presence shows how God's grace breaks barriers and includes outsiders in his plan. Tamar's story challenges us deeply, invites us to see how God often works through imperfect circumstances and flawed individuals to accomplish his greater purposes. Her life was anything but simple. It was complicated, tangled with difficult choices, and filled with morally ambiguous moments that make us pause and reflect. Yet, despite all this complexity, God used Tamar's unwavering faith, courage, and determination to bring about his divine plan in ways no one could have predicted. This powerful truth offers profound hope and encouragement to each of us. No matter how messy, broken, or challenging our situations may be, God's grace is always enough to redeem, restore, and transform. When we look closely at Tamar's legacy, we are reminded that God's ways are infinitely higher than ours, often beyond human understanding or expectations. Tamar's journey, full of unexpected twists, heartaches, and unconventional decisions, stands as a vivid testament to God's faithfulness and providence. Her life shows us that even when the path seems uncertain, confusing, or unconventional, trusting God's plan is the key to seeing his purpose unfold. Tamar teaches us that God's sovereignty is never thwarted by human failure or hardship. So when life feels unfair, and when you feel powerless, overlooked, or trapped in difficult circumstances, remember Tamar. She faced rejection, betrayal, danger, and social stigma, yet she responded with boldness, wisdom, and faith. Tamar's courage to stand firm in the face of injustice shaped the course of history in ways that echo through generations. Her story reminds us that even in our darkest moments, faith can move mountains and change destinies. Your faith, no matter how small or fragile, can do the same. It can overcome obstacles, heal wounds, and open doors to new beginnings. Tamar's life encourages us to hold on, to keep trusting, and to believe that God can use every twist and turn in our story for his glory.